West Africa, in a tit-for-tat move, Mali has imposed visa bond requirements on United States citizens. The restrictions come in response to a US decision requiring Malian nationals seeking business or tourist visas to post hefty bonds of between $5,000, $10,000.
Something just happened that's shaking the walls of Washington. Donald Trump thought he could corner Africa with a visa penalty. But this time, the tables turned. No protests, no apologies, just a quiet line in an official statement that hit like thunder. All U.S. citizens will now have to deposit $10,000 to enter Mali. Within hours, phones were ringing in D.C., and Trump, the man who prides himself on being unpredictable, was blindsided by a move he never saw coming. Because this wasn't just payback, it was a message. For decades, when the West punished Africa, African nations accepted it. They negotiated, begged for concessions, even apologized. But not this time. Mali didn't ask for a discount. Rather, it imposed a heavy penalty on the citizens of the so-called most powerful country in the world. And there is nothing Trump can do. And yet, that's not even the part that's making Trump furious. So what really happened? In this video, let's find out. The war over the visa fee started with Trump. When he announced his plan to protect American borders, the world had heard similar rhetoric before. But this time, the strategy wasn't fences or patrols. It was paperwork weaponized into policy. The U.S. State Department quietly rolled out a pilot scheme demanding a visa bond, a refundable deposit of $5,000 to $10,000 from visitors coming from countries labeled as high overstay risks. Behind that diplomatic phrasing sat a harsher truth. Washington had decided that some passports were less trustworthy than others. And sitting near the top of that list was Mali. In Washington's bureaucratic halls, it looked like a small administrative experiment. In Bamako, it felt like an insult wrapped in official language. For years, Mali had been a cooperative partner in U.S. counterinsurgency campaigns, sharing intelligence on Sahel insurgents, tightening its borders, and helping to stem irregular migration through West Africa. To then be grouped among unreliable nations struck at national pride. However, Trump's team justified the move as deterrence, a way to ensure that visitors returned home on time. But in Africa, the optics were unmistakable, a financial barrier built on suspicion. The U.S. wasn't just controlling movement, it was monetizing mistrust. Many Malian officials quietly wondered why loyalty counted for so little. The same government that once hailed them as partners in fighting extremism now treated them as potential violators. Yet the America that made this decision no longer faced the Mali of yesterday. Colonel Assimi Goïta, who rose to power in 2021, had shifted the country's political DNA. Gone was the post-colonial habit of deference. In its place stood an unflinching demand for reciprocity. So when Trump's policy landed, Mali didn't draft letters of complaint or request clarifications. It waited, watched, and began plotting a response that would rewrite the unwritten rules of diplomacy. The retaliation came with the precision of a military maneuver. One ordinary Friday afternoon, the Malian Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a short statement that stunned Western embassies. U.S. citizens applying for tourist or business visas shall henceforth be required to deposit up to $10,000 as a refundable bond. No fury, no speeches, just calm administrative language carrying the weight of historical frustration. What Washington had dismissed as routine procedure became, in Mali's hands, an act of poetic justice. For the first time, an African nation wasn't pleading for exceptions. It was enforcing equality. Bamako hadn't copied the U.S. rule out of vengeance, it had mirrored it with surgical accuracy. If America valued financial guarantees as proof of good behavior, Mali would value the same. If the world's richest country could demand a bond from a developing one, then the developing one could demand an identical bond from the rich. Inside U.S. diplomatic circles, disbelief turned to quiet panic. The embassy in Bamako issued a short line. We are reviewing the implications. In diplomatic language, that meant shock, American policymakers were used to African protests fading under the weight of aid dependency. They weren't prepared for a countermeasure that required no protests, no boycotts, and no slogans, only confidence. Mali had just transformed a bureaucratic insult into a lesson in parity, and that's what made it brilliant. By doing exactly what Washington had done, Bamako exposed the hypocrisy hidden in Western diplomacy. Reciprocity, long demanded but never practiced, had finally found a champion in a small Sahel nation unafraid to break tradition. However, to understand why this symbolic retaliation resonated so deeply, one has to look at how Assimi Goïta rebuilt Mali's sense of self. Before his rise, the nation had been defined by dependence. French troops patrolling its deserts, Western donors shaping its budgets, and international institutions prescribing its reforms. After the 2021 coup, Goïta began dismantling that architecture brick by brick. He expelled Operation Barkhane, the long-running French counterinsurgency mission that had outstayed both its purpose and its welcome. In its place came Russian military advisors and later the Africa Corps, offering tactical support without political sermons. He revised mining laws, ensuring Mali's gold and lithium wealth served national priorities rather than foreign conglomerates. In schools and speeches, the new government began speaking a different language, one of sovereignty, not survival. This ideological shift created the mindset that made the visa counterattack inevitable. When Trump's bond policy arrived, Goïta didn't see the paperwork. He saw a power imbalance. In Western diplomacy, financial requirements often disguise moral judgments. Who can be trusted? Who must be watched? For Goïta, matching that requirement wasn't about hostility. It was about symmetry. And so Mali's response wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. It was a continuation of Goïta's larger doctrine, balance through self-respect. He understood that in a world where soft power is exercised through regulation and rhetoric, the most effective resistance is replication. And Mali didn't burn bridges with the West. It built new ones with equal tolls on both sides. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black Africa. Let's continue now. The transformation was psychological as much as political. For the first time, Malians saw their government standing tall in an arena usually dominated by external powers. The narrative of helplessness was fading. In its place grew a new confidence, one that said dignity could be a foreign policy tool as potent as diplomacy itself. And this sent shockwaves not just to the US, but inside the African continent. The tremor that began in Bamako rippled across the Sahel, shaking capitals that had long shared the same frustrations. In Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a fellow reformist and Goïta's closest ally, publicly supported Mali's decision, calling it a mirror the world needed to see. In Niger, still navigating its own post-coup transition, officials privately praised Bamako for turning defiance into diplomacy. This regional resonance birthed something historic, the alliance of Sahel states, a trinational pact between Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Initially conceived for collective defense, it quickly evolved into an economic and diplomatic bloc, symbolizing Africa's push for autonomy. For decades, these nations had operated within ECOWAS, an organization often influenced by Western economic pressure. The AES marked their emancipation from that orbit, and now, Mali's visa bond policy has become the perfect emblem of this broader awakening. It wasn't merely about tourism or visas, it was a declaration that African states would no longer accept asymmetry as normal. When the US punished Burkina Faso by suspending visa services after it refused to accept deported migrants, Ouagadougou called the decision what it was: blackmail. Now, with Mali showing that financial reciprocity works, others suddenly had a template for standing up without shouting. This is how revolutions begin in modern geopolitics. Not with wars, but with administrative mimicry that flips hierarchy on its head. Mali proved that resistance need not be loud to be effective. It just needs to be consistent. And as the AES solidified, the message expanded beyond the Sahel. From Guinea to Niger, from Chad to Senegal, African leaders and citizens began questioning every double standard embedded in international relations. Where once the West dictated the rhythm of diplomacy, now Africa was setting its own tempo. The $10,000 bond wasn't an obstacle. It was a badge of identity. It said, if partnership is truly equal, then let it cost equally on both sides. In that single act of mirroring, Mali crystallized what scholars are now calling the diplomacy of dignity. Back in Washington, the silence was deafening. Trump's advisors were split. Some urged a quick reversal, arguing that a symbolic concession could diffuse tensions and restore access to Mali's mineral wealth. Others wanted escalation, suspend aid, recall ambassadors, make an example of Bamako before other African capitals followed suit. But every option carried risk. Retaliate, and Mali would pivot even deeper into the arms of Russia and China, two powers eager to expand influence across Africa. Concede, and Washington would look weak, encouraging other states to demand reciprocity. Ignore, and the message of defiance would spread unchallenged. Trump's signature style, bold, transactional, and confrontational, suddenly looked inadequate against Goita's quiet precision. The White House had used policy to project strength. Mali had used the same policy to project equality. It was checkmate in slow motion. Inside African diplomatic circles, Mali's move became case study material. Analysts pointed out that Western dominance often rests not on armies, but on administrative leverage, visa access, aid conditions, and IMF compliance. By neutralizing one of those levers, Mali had disrupted an entire system of subtle control. It didn't matter that the policy affected only a small number of travelers. Symbolically, it redrew the map of respect. Meanwhile, public opinion across Africa celebrated the act as long overdue justice. Editorials in Dakar, Accra, and Nairobi praised Bamako for exposing the hypocrisy of selective trust. Social media users turned the phrase "bond of dignity" into a trending hashtag. What was once a bureaucratic announcement became a cultural milestone, proof that self-worth can be legislated into foreign policy. For Trump, this presented an unprecedented challenge. His America First rhetoric had been designed to impress domestic audiences, not provoke symmetrical resistance abroad. But Mali's response turned his own logic against him. If America First meant prioritizing national pride, then Mali First did exactly the same. In that reflection lay Washington's discomfort, and perhaps its lesson. By the end of that week, American analysts began acknowledging what diplomats privately admitted. Mali had outmaneuvered them morally, if not materially. A nation long portrayed as fragile had executed one of the most elegant demonstrations of sovereignty in recent African history. Do you think Mali just taught Trump a lesson the whole world needed to see? Will Trump dare to retaliate against Mali, or stay silent this time? In the comment section, share your thoughts on what if all African countries impose a visa fee on America. Will the U.S. be forced to remove the visa fee it imposed that started it all? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos on Black Africa, its history, rich arts and culture, and things the world should know about. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.